Hi and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us in today's video. My name is Nicole with morningchores.com, and today I'm going to show you how to process food using the pressure canner system. If you're new to our channel, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. If you are a seasoned subscriber, welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. Today is an extension video from our previous canning series. I did a video on an introduction to canning as well as how to water bath can, and if you missed those, I would highly recommend that you check those out. They're in the description box below, and then you can come back here and watch this video. We would love for you to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell notification so that you never miss a video. In today's video, I'm going to not only demonstrate how to pressure can, but we're also going to talk about the benefits of pressure canning and when and why you would use this method. In my introduction to canning video, I did explain the difference between water bath canning and pressure canning, but let's just reiterate it here so that we're all on the same page. Water bath canning is used for high acid foods, things like tomatoes, jams, peaches, and applesauce, and I demonstrated how to can applesauce in the previous video. Water bath canning is where you bring a large pot of water to boil, and after your jars are loaded with their food and they have the correct lids on, you submerge those jars into the water and you process it for a period of time until those lids seal. Pressure canning is a little different. Yes, you do use a large pot, but you use a lot less water, and this process is where you put a lid on the pot and you build pressure inside that pot, and that pressure is what seals the lid to the jar. And this method is used for low acid foods. So this would be things like green beans, chicken broth, and meat. I actually prefer to pressure can over water bath canning. I just think it's easier, it takes less water, and a lot of people are scared to pressure can because we always think of the worst case scenario that the pressure canner is going to explode or do something like that. But I've been using the pressure canner for over a decade now, and I've never ever had that happen. So as long as you follow the instructions properly and you just don't walk away from it, it shouldn't happen to you. It is really, really important that you do follow proper instructions when it comes to both water bath canning and pressure canning. There is a lot of information on the internet in regards to canning, and there's a lot of misinformation. And I know that's our go-to, is that we just go on the internet and search what we want, but I would highly recommend, especially if you're a beginner, to get this book. This is the Blue Book Guide to Preserving. It demonstrates and teaches you exactly how to water bath can and how to pressure can, and it has all kinds of other tips for freezing food and different things like that. So this will be linked in the description box below, and I highly recommend that you get this book if you really are interested in canning. Our supply list includes a jar lifter, a funnel, a fork or a magnetic lid lifter, a small to medium-sized saucepan, the appropriate size lids and bands. In this case, I'm using regular mouth lids, of course your glass canning jars. Make sure that they are clean and they have no nicks or cracks, water, and lastly, our pressure canner along with your canner base. You need this to set inside the canner, and your canner should come with this piece. My bone broth is already made up, boiling, and ready to go. I followed the recipe in the Blue Ball book I mentioned earlier in the video. The first step is to fill your canner with 2 to 3 inches of water. Next, fill your jars with hot water and place them inside your canner. Place the lid on top of the canner, but do not lock in place, just set on top. There are arrows to help line up the lid properly. Turn the stove heat on high and bring your water and your jars to a boil and keep everything hot until you're ready to can. The next step is to fill your sauce pot with water. Place lids in bands in your pot of water and set the heat on medium. We do not want to boil our lids and bands. We only want to get everything hot and ready for canning. As you can see, the water is starting to bubble. We don't want to boil the lids and bands. We just want to get them hot. And since my canner's not quite ready yet, we're gonna go ahead and just turn this down to low. And we'll keep it there until we're ready to use them. Now that our jars are hot, it's time to remove the jars and dump the water into the sink and set things up to begin canning. Here I am setting up my canning station. I like to create an assembly line so the process goes as efficiently as possible. Using a funnel and a ladle, I'm going to go ahead and begin filling up my jars with the broth, leaving 1-inch headspace. Before putting the lids on, it is important to wipe the rims off with a clean, damp cloth. Using a magnetic lid lifter, or in my case a fork, place the lids on top of the jar with the rubber side down. Then secure the lid with a band and tighten just until it won't turn anymore. You don't want to fasten it too tight. Using the jar lifter, place the jars inside the canner, keeping the jars evenly apart just like we did before. Place the canning lid on top of the canner, locking in place. Turn the stove heat on high, and next we're going to wait for steam to come out of the chimney. As you can hopefully see, the steam is coming out of the chimney. It's really loud, and I wish I could film it and talk over the noise, but I can't do that. So just know that it is really loud. But once the steam starts coming out steadily, we're now going to time the steam for 10 minutes before we move on to the next step. Our 10-minute timer went off, so now we will place the cap on top of the chimney. And now pressure is going to build inside the canner. You will start to see the needle moving up, which it's already beginning to do. I'm going to turn the heat to medium-high. We want to get to 10 pounds pressure and maintain for 20 minutes. My pressure canner has reached a little past 10 pounds pressure, as you can see, and you don't need to be alarmed. I went ahead and I turned my heat down to low So this should bring it down to 10 pounds pressure, and sometimes when it's on the low heat, it will bring it down lower than 10 pounds, and then I have to bump the heat up. So like I said, every stove is different, and you just kind of have to figure out what you have to do to maintain 10 pounds pressure, because that's the key. We want to maintain 10 pounds pressure for 20 minutes. So because we're doing pints chicken broth in pints, we need to process them for 20 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and set my timer for 20 minutes, and we'll see you back here in a little bit. By turning the heat down to low, I'm now maintaining 10 pounds pressure. So I'm just gonna keep an eye on it and make sure it stays at 10 pounds pressure. And if it slips below the 10, I will go ahead and bump the heat up a little bit. So again, this is an activity that you don't want to just walk away from and go do something else until the timer goes off. You want to actually stick close by so that you can keep a close eye on your dial. My timer went off, and thankfully I was able to maintain the 10 pounds pressure for the duration of the 20 minutes. So all we're going to do now is shut the heat completely off, and we're going to let this cool down on its own. So what we want to do is we want this needle to come all the way down to 0 before we do the next step. So don't touch it. Do not, absolutely do not take the little cap off of the chimney. You need to just leave it there. Don't mess with the lid, and just let it sit and cool down naturally. Our needle reached down to 0, so now I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes, and we will let this sit for that time before removing the chimney cap. Our 10-minute timer just went off, so now we're going to remove the chimney cap, and then I'm going to set the timer for another 10 minutes before removing the lid. It is now safe to remove the lid from the canner, so I'm going to unlock the lid and remove all of the jars from the pressure canner with my jar lifter. Please be careful because everything is really hot, and it's very easy to burn yourself, so just go slowly and cautiously, and if you need to, wear oven mitts. Allow the jars to cool completely on your countertop before you try to remove the bands, and check the lids to see if they actually sealed. These have been sitting for about 2 hours now. I like to let them just kind of cool down on the stove until I remove the rings. And then after a couple of hours, I go ahead and remove the rings. And as you can see, they're pretty loose. They do kind of loosen when they are in the pressure canner sometimes. And then I just kind of lift around the edges, and if it doesn't come up, then it has sealed. Another way to check is that there will be an indentation in the center, and it will be indented down, and that's another indicator. You never want to push that down. If it is raised up and you push it down, it's not technically sealed. So you don't want to push that down, but if it's popped up, then it did not seal properly. So that's another way that you can tell. So that one's sealed. As your jars cool on the counter, you may hear a popping noise. This is perfectly normal. This just means that your jars are sealing, so it's a good positive noise. After my jars have set for at least 24 hours, I like to wash them with soapy water to remove any food residue from the outside of the jar. Once they're thoroughly washed, I like to dry them really well with a dry towel. Always make sure to label your jars with what's inside and the date. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and you found it helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment in the description box below. Again, I would highly recommend you get that book, so it'll be linked in the description box below too. You can also head over to morningchores.com where you can find even more information on homesteading, gardening, sustainable living, and much, much more. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we'll see you on the next one.